Greetings and welcome. Today I'll be continuing my Bible study on Gehazi or Gehazi or however you want to call him. So yeah, this is going to be part two. I'm going to talk about like the section I left off in 2 Kings chapter 4. 2 Kings chapter 4 verse 25 to 27. So I was talking about that last time I didn't finish because there was so much to say. I had like a super long intro in the first part. But yeah, there's a lot to say here. Um, so I'll just continue where I left off with the last video. But so the woman, the woman, she comes to Elisha, for help, and she doesn't trust Gehazi. She doesn't trust him to help her with her problems. She goes to you know, she like when Gehazi asks her how is she doing, she just ignores him, and she doesn't, only when she meets Elisha does she actually tell him about her burdens, what's troubling her soul. So notice how there's a difference. Like she only trusts Elisha, she doesn't trust Gehazi. So I know I brought that up quite a bit in the previous video. But it's a good point to make. And then here in verse 27, so we're reading 25, 26, 27. So in verse 27, where I left off, I'll just read this again. 2 Kings 4:27. It says, "And when she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God said, Let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her, and the Lord hath hid it from me, and hath not told me." So Gehazi, instead of welcoming someone in need and in trouble, he just starts thrusting her away. Like he doesn't have that heart, that counseling heart to help others. He just thrusts her away when she's asking for help. And Elisha said, like, hey, stop, like, what are you doing? Like, she's here because like the attitude Gehazi takes is this like Pharisaical attitude, and you can kind of see it even like in the New Testament among some of the religious elite. It's like they have this holy attitude, like holier than thou attitude. It's like, we are holy men. Why are you approaching us? It's that attitude, and he's taking that attitude. It's like Elisha is this amazing prophet. Like, what are you doing? Like, stop begging him. Like, why are you at his feet? Why are you grabbing him by his legs? Like, what are you doing? It's like, how dare you approach us? And it's that attitude. Like how dare you act like that? And see, God doesn't treat you like that. When you come to God, that's normal. It's normal to come to God without like that. Clinging to His feet. It's like, help me. And that's how many people came to Jesus. You could see that throughout the New Testament. And it's interesting, like you can actually draw a parallel here between Gehazi and Jesus's disciples, because Jesus's disciples, his apostles, they actually had a kind of a similar attitude. They could act like Gehazi sometimes. When the children were brought to Jesus, the apostles were like, "Hey, get him out of here." It's like Jesus, he doesn't have time for these children, and Jesus said, like, "Hey, no, 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 stop, like, let them come to me." It's Jesus' attitude is different. He's much more welcoming of others, and he wants to help others. He doesn't take this like, "I'm busy," or like just kind of like religious holding the attitude. He really does. He is very accepting. And his disciples, though, they didn't always have that heart, like they would, thrust people away and kind of put up this barrier. Like in a way, they were almost acting like Jesus's bodyguards. It's like, don't you know who this is? It's like they were acting like Jesus's bodyguards. He didn't need bodyguards, you know. But and it's kind of this. I'm almost seeing like a parallel here. Ghazi's acting the same way. It's like, don't you know who this is? It's like, well, why are you acting this way? And as a Christian, you should never rise up to some kind of super high level of authority to the point where you can't talk to the average person You can't listen to them. If you become like if you like once you reach like celebrity status, you're doing something wrong. There's definitely something wrong with that, with this whole religious celebrity thing. If you can't associate with the common person, and you end up with this barrier around you, then you're just a Pharisee at that point. And obviously, this is what Jesus was criticizing. Jesus was criticizing this kind of attitude towards the world. Like if you want to reach the lost world, especially, or even just minister to saved people, then you're not going to get very far with that kind of an attitude. You need to be welcoming of people. That doesn't mean accept sin. Sin is sin, but you can't just thrust people away when they come to you for help. And so like right there, you can kind of see it already, like Gehazi's character. Just from those few verses, you kind of already see his attitude. She doesn't trust him, and he just doesn't have that like an aura. Like some people just have an aura around him. I don't know if that's the right word to use. Like I don't think it's not something you really see. The Bible. Some people say like, yeah, this person, they have good vibes, or this person has bad vibes, and people can kind of feel that. And sometimes it's just like, yeah, this person is saved. He has the Holy Spirit. You could just feel it. Some people just have that energy. You could just feel it on them. So it's like, yeah, this was, Gehazi was just kind of like, this is not the attitude to take. And like I said, you can see parallels. The disciples, Jesus' disciples, his apostles, which are supposed to be his best men, still didn't always have that correct spiritual discernment. So just know it's not something that happens naturally, and you do need to exercise wisdom, because like you could be having a bad day and you'll be acting just like Gehazi. If you're having a bad day, so just know this is the right attitude to take. And it's interesting at the end of verse 27. It says, her soul is vexed and the Lord had hid it from me. So Elisha didn't know what the problem was. So it's kind of, yeah, God didn't let him know what the problem was. God could have told Elisha what the problem was, why she came to him, but but God didn't. So he wanted the woman to tell him herself. So so actually, I think it just points out here that just because you're the prophet, just because God will like put you in that position, you're a pastor, you have this position of power, it doesn't mean you're all knowing. He didn't know it. Like God could have told him, but God didn't. So it's all in God's power. If God could hide the truth from you, God might like just blind you from the truth, and he just doesn't want you to know something at a certain point in time. And then later he'll reveal it to you. It's up to God whether he reveals something to you or not. So just keep that in mind. So yeah, verse 27, her soul is vexed, and the Lord hid from me. So anyway, I'll move on to my next point. But anyway, I'm just showing you like, he doesn't see the needs of the people. Basically, this is bad character flaw for a Christian. He doesn't see the needs of the people. As a Christian, you should love people, and I understand that's not always easy, because you have to love imperfect people, and they could Christians and non-Christians. So anyway, he has Gehazi doesn't have a lot of spirituality. He's very ineffective. So yeah, actually, I'm going to read the next passage. This is actually in the same chapter, 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 31 through 35. So this is going to talk about how Elisha is actually trying to revive this woman's son. So he's like, okay, I heard your prayer. I'm gonna go revive him now. So 2 Kings 4:31. It says, and Gehazi passed on before them and laid the staff upon the face of the child, but there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him and told him, saying, the child is not awaked. So in verse 31, you could already see like Elisha told Gehazi, like, hey, here's my staff. Like that's what it says, right? His staff. Laid the staff upon the face of the child. So Elisha gives his staff to Gehazi and says, okay, go and revive the child. Okay, good, fair enough. So Gehazi goes and tries to revive him, and and it doesn't work. There is neither voice nor hearing, wherefore he awake to meet him. He told him, saying, the child is not awake. So Gehazi, will listen to Elisha. He's like, okay, sure, okay, I'll take the staff, go. He tries to revive the child. It doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because Gehazi's not Elisha. God gave the power to do these miracles to Elisha. So he's the one. Elisha asked for a double portion, to do more miracles than Elijah did. And it worked. Elisha did do actually more miracles than Elijah. Actually, I remember hearing a sermon one time that if you actually read the miracles, I think Elijah did like 7 of them. And you can actually see, I think it has 14 of them written for Elisha. Like literally, there's actually double. There's actually, I don't know, like you could probably do the study yourself if you're interested, but I do believe that was the case, that Elijah had 7, Elisha had 14 incidents where, I mean, it shows, what he did, like a miracle. I'm sure there were plenty more, but, like if you're talking about just like what's written in the Bible, Elisha actually had double what Elijah did. So it's actually kind of an interesting point here. But so Elisha had the blessing, he had the mantle from Elijah. Gehazi didn't have any of that passed down to him, and well, he didn't really have the character for it anyway. So he tried to emulate and replicate Elisha, without having the spirit of Elisha, without having the blessing from God to work the miracles. So obviously, it didn't work. It was ineffectual. The staff is not what does the healing. It's God. God is working through the staff. The staff is just like a symbol. So it didn't work. And this is like, once again, I'm going to draw a parallel. Like you can actually see parallels between Gehazi and Jesus's disciples. Jesus told his disciples, oh, go out and try to, they're going to cast out some devil, and it didn't work. They tried to do what Jesus did. They tried to emulate Jesus's miracles and cast out this devil, and it didn't work because they're not Jesus. And then Jesus said, oh, this type you can only cast them out by prayer and by fasting. So Jesus knows what to do. He can make it work. He'll get it done. But his disciples, apostles, no, maybe not. Like they don't have that power unless it's given to them from God. It doesn't work. And a lot of times you just don't have that relationship with God. You're not doing right. That's why God can't use you. And so just like Jesus' disciples couldn't do what they were supposed to do, they didn't have that same power Jesus had. Gehazi does not have the same power Elisha has. They're not the same person. And there's a lot of things, it's like God just didn't call you to do certain things. There's just certain things that it's not going to work because God didn't tell you to do them. And then, or he could have told you to do them, but you're so backslidden that he can't use you correctly, which is, I think, the case with Gehazi here. If he doesn't have that heart for people, then he's not going to have the same power. So obviously here it's saying like he's trying to revive the child, and it doesn't work. So it's like God can't. You're the wrong vessel. He can only work through the right vessel, and Gehazi was not the right vessel to do the Lord's work. So anyway, just keep that in mind. So verse 31, very good verse here. The child is not awaked. Verse 32. And when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead and laid upon his bed. So now Elisha is actually trying to do it. He knows Gehazi failed, so he's gonna step in and do what he's supposed to do. And verse 33. He went in therefore and shut the door upon them twain and prayed unto the Lord. Okay, so see, very, very different approach. I think Gehazi just says, lay the staff on the face, but there is neither voice nor... Yeah, so Gehazi just does the work. Gehazi just like, okay, here's the staff here. Like, it didn't say, like, he didn't pray. He didn't ask God to work through him. He didn't give glory to the Lord. He just, like, he's trying to emulate what Elisha was doing, but just the actions, just in the physical realm. You're trying to replicate what someone does without doing all the behind the scenes work to make it effectual. Because all you see is the physical. You don't see the behind the scenes stuff. You don't see the prayer or the Bible study that pastor puts in for his preaching or his Bible study. You only see the outward, right? You don't see the behind the scenes work. So Gehazi, he's like, he's just doing the outward stuff. I got the staff. But no, Elisha, the first thing he does, shuts the door, tries to get it all quiet, tries to get it, just him and the dead child. Everyone's gone. From my understanding, there's no one else in the room. So he's not making it says upon them, shut the door upon them twain. So just him and the dead child. And he shuts the door. He wants it quiet. He wants to be focused. Just with he's going to pray. He's praying, and he wants God to work through him to revive this child. And he does some other stuff there, but it's just different. His approach is different. His spirit is different. His attitude is different towards his work, towards what the Lord called him to do. He has a humble spirit. It's like he has confidence, though. That's important. So if you know the Lord is working through you, you can have confidence, but you can be humble. You need to be humble, yet confident. Confident because you know the Lord's working through you, that you're saying exactly what the Lord told you to say. That's different from being arrogant and showy, which is unfortunately a problem in some churches. You got some movements where it's all about screaming and yelling and just you got to make it exciting, or if the Lord's not there, right? I mean, like, people have this wrong impression of what it means for the Lord to be in church. Okay, you don't need to be yelling and screaming. There's joy, there can be excitement, but if you don't have people like dancing all over the place and yelling and screaming, that doesn't mean the Lord's not in there. The Lord speaks in a very quiet, still voice many times. He doesn't yell. The work of the Holy Spirit isn't always like showy. There's a lot of quiet behind the scenes work here. So notice Elisha here is praying. Elisha came into the house, behold, the child was dead and laid upon the bed. So verse 33, he shuts the door. Verse 34, and he went up and laid upon the child and put his mouth upon his mouth and his eyes upon his eyes and his hands upon his hands, and he stretched himself upon the child. The flesh of the child waxed warm. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. Anyway, he goes on. So he revived the child. Elisha successfully revived the child. So there's a lot of miracles in the Bible. Reviving someone, that's extremely rare. I actually don't know of very many cases. I mean, besides Jesus, and let's see, I think Elijah revived someone else, but it's extremely rare. This is like one of the greatest miracles. Like, you're like, okay, if this happens, it's God. It's not just some coincidence, like resurrecting someone from the dead. Okay, like you don't really get that much, more impressive than that. Because you're just doing something that's impossible. Like, it goes against all laws of science. You're going into the spiritual realm. Okay, there's no scientific explanation for reviving someone from the dead. So it's like, yeah, obviously the work of God. And so Elisha did this. He was successful because his spirit is different. Okay, so that's the thing. You can emulate someone. Gehazi was trying to emulate, Elisha in some ways, but he was unsuccessful. Like having good role models near you is good, and trying to emulate them is good. But if you don't have the right motive, and you don't have the right heart attitude that this person has, then the results won't be the same. Now, I don't know, like Gehazi had some ulterior motives, definitely, kind of deceitful, and I don't know what he was. I think he was there was some. He was a bit greedy. There was definitely something he wanted that. Out of it, something personal, like some personal gain. I don't know what it was. I don't really understand why someone would go into religion or church just for some personal gain, but that happens. There are some people, this is like one of the worst types of people there can be, is to start a church and use it to try to get money from people and then steal that money and run off. And there have been cases of that, unfortunately, and it looks so awful. That there are people like that. claiming to be pastors. There's basically charlatans, thieves. They'll run off with offerings and tithes, embezzling money, and and then you start wondering, like, are these people Christians? Were they ever really saved? Like, did they ever get saved, or were they lying from the very beginning? And you really don't know sometimes. And you don't really know Gehazi. Like, did he start off with good intentions, and did he just end up like that over time? I don't know. But obviously, there's something wrong. There's something wrong, and there are many people like this in church. Many people. Not unfortunately. Elishas are the exception. We have plenty of Gehazis. That's not good. We have a lot of Gehazis, and a lot of people that are out there for their own personal gain, and that aren't there to help the body of Christ. And that's what you should be there. You should be there to help other people and see their needs. And this is ultimately, like, this first point I had that's already spanning 2 videos, is that Gehazi just doesn't see the need. He doesn't see the need of the people. And that's really what you need. You need to see the need that others have, so that you can help them and God can work through you, through these people. That God can work through you to help these people. That's what I meant. So Gehazi saw the problem. Gehazi was trying to fix it. Okay, that's good, but he was ineffective. And if you live a life of sin, a life away from the Lord, a life of deception, then God can't use you. You might even try to do good, and it won't work. You won't get the same results someone else will. And obviously, like, comparing yourself to others with their results, that's not always good. Comparison will, comparing ourselves among ourselves, you're not wise. I forget the actual verse. Maybe I'm not quoting correctly, but I think it was in the New Testament. It says that comparing yourselves among yourselves is not wise. Like, that's not something you should be doing. And it's very dangerous to do that. But sometimes it is good to see, like, role models being successful. But if you're doing a lot of good, you're trying to do something, and it just keeps failing and failing, like, why? You have to ask yourself, like, do you have the right heart attitude? Is it just God's just teaching you a lesson here, or what is it? Is it just a trial, or is there some really deep, big reason why God is not allowing you to do what you're trying to do? And sometimes that's the problem. It's like, are you being a Gehazi? It's like, are you approaching it like Elisha, or are you approaching it like Gehazi? So so unfortunately, this you could bring up so many points here, but another point I had was that unfortunately, through the generations, you kind of lose that spirituality. I could probably make a whole video about that, how previous generations were spiritual, and then the current generation we have of Christians is like nothing compared to what we had 2 generations ago. The preaching was different. It's, the current preaching is like watered down. The music's different. Everything's different. The Bible knowledge is like dropped considerably. People question truth. What is truth? It's like, it's like all these weird ideas about the Bible and all these lies, and a lot of it, is picked up from media, from going to school, and it's invaded people's minds, and a lot of that. And it's like, so I just wrote, like, just because someone has backbone doesn't mean, and is spiritually good and doing the moral correct thing, does not mean that they will be able to pass that on to the next generation. Unfortunately, there are plenty of examples in the Bible and in real life where someone, a good preacher or a good Christian, could not pass that on to the next generation. Their children were not doing right. Samuel's sons were not doing right in the Bible. Samuel was, an amazing Christian, but for some reason, the Bible doesn't really go into details. That spirit did not pass on to his sons. And, it's like every, like Apostle Paul had a Timothy that he passed it on to. Fortunately, not every church has Timothys. Not every pastor has Timothys that he can pass on his knowledge and his wisdom to. It just doesn't always happen. Not every man handles it correctly. And here, this is a good example. Elijah passed it on to Elisha. That was a successful transfer. But then Elisha is trying to transfer it to Gehazi, and it's not there. Like, it just a total disconnect. Gehazi just does not have that spirit. He does not have the right heart attitude that Elisha had. And it's just not transferring. Now, I don't know. Maybe Elisha made a bad choice. It's like maybe Elisha had some other people he could have passed it on to. I don't know why he picked Gehazi. I have no idea. But it's obviously there's a disconnect here. It's not the same. It's just not. He just doesn't have that spirit. And this is. I mean, this is another reason this channel exists. I'm trying to pass on the right things because a lot of the truth has been lost over the last. I mean, we still have the Bible. The truth. Okay, the truth hasn't been lost. It's in the Bible. But access to that truth, for some reason, although we have access to it, a lot of people just prefer to learn lies. Basically, the Bible's there. People choose not to read it, and that's what this channel exists to eliminate ignorance. That's really what this channel is about: is to eliminate ignorance as much as possible about the Bible, about Christianity, and to try to educate Christians and non-Christians. I am trying to educate, trying to get non-Christians to understand more things about the Bible, because there are many misconceptions. That's what really these videos are all about, is to eliminate misconceptions and just get people on the right track in a coherent manner. Not in something. My point is to be balanced, not to be overly get too crazy with like the Greek and the Hebrew and all these little details, that are probably not going to be that helpful. But at the same time, none of this shallow preaching where it's obvious the pastor doesn't hardly knows anything about the Bible. I'm trying to avoid that, trying to get balance, trying to give you depth, but in a understandable manner. And that's really basically what I'm trying to. The manner I'm trying to do all this in, all the Bible studies and all the sermons. That's the point. That's the point of all of this. So yeah, I think I'll end the video here. I have plenty more to say. I'm going to continue this topic on Gehazi on video number 3. My next point is that he has no integrity. Gehazi has no integrity. And so later I'll be reading the story about him and Naaman. This is not the only story. There's Gehazi comes up again. And I basically the next video will show how Gehazi starts to reap what he's been sowing. He's been sowing all of this, all of these lies, and he's gonna start reaping. He's gonna start reaping the life that he's been living all this time. So that's my next point: is that Gehazi doesn't have any integrity. So anyway, I'll see you next time. Hope to see you then.